My introduction into the philosophy of human nature has introduced me to questions I've never considered before, forcing me to confront and reflect on my ideas about life. This has made a solid impact on my preconceived notions around what it means to be human. Initially, I found being human a unique and therefore hard to define experience, as many aspects that differentiate us from other beings, communication, societies, our extensive range of emotions, etc., are not necessarily universally shared. Every person's experience with each of these is different. There is no singular way to communicate, no definitive way to socialize or feel. Meanwhile, in other species, we have down to a study. You don't tend to question what it means when a dog puts its ears back or wags its tail. This ultimately landed me on the notion that humanhood and what makes it unique could perhaps be explained by its broadness. There is no singular experience or behaviour that can be definitively shared by every single human, yet we are all human nonetheless. In week 2, I was introduced to the mind-body problem, which highlights the notion of a certain unverifiable question about humans. Whether our mind can be perceived as separate or connected to our physical being. Within this philosophical inquiry lies two main theories: physicalism and dualism. The tension between these two highlights a certain unanswerable nature of our existence. But as they began to waver, new ideologies emerged. Behaviorism formed as an alternative to both theories, attempting to understand the mind in terms of bodily behaviors. Notable philosophers Ludwig Wittgenstein and Gilbert Ryle grounded their understanding of behaviorism in the concerns surrounding private experience, as there is no way of fully knowing how the other person operates or perceives the world. This quote from Wittgenstein resonated deeply with my preconceived understanding surrounding the human experience. How can we clearly define an experience we possibly don't even share? The complexities surrounding the mind-body problem flowed into the next week's discussion around personal identity. In his 1984 book, Reasons and Persons, Derek Parfit introduces the teletransportation paradox, presenting a hypothetical scenario in which a person is able to travel to Mars by hopping into a machine that destroys their brain and body, whilst recording the exact state of their cells, sending these to a replicator on Mars. This initially made sense to me as a method of transportation, as I equated myself with my DNA. But the continuation of the paradox forced me to rethink this notion. In what Parfit refers to as the branch-line case, the person hops in a new machine that does not destroy his original body, meaning there was now a version of himself both on Earth and on Mars. This to me seems incomprehensible. How could there be two versions of myself? I originally envisioned that with my cells being replicated and my memories being carried over, my consciousness would go with them. But that's imperceivable when we consider the branch-line case. That week's reading, which was also by Parfit, discussed ideas like ego theory and bundle theory. And whilst they provided me with interesting insights surrounding ways to perceive identity, they did not bring me to an answer on this paradox. This leads me to where I am now. If you were to ask me today what I think it means to be human, I would simply say that it is something intangible surrounding our consciousness. Something that may never be definitively understood. I do, however, think that this perhaps does not make us essentially unique. I think the same answer can be applied to any being. Perhaps there is more to what makes a dog than their ears and their tails, and how they use them. Albeit not separate entirely, I cannot completely separate my existence as a human from the fact that I have lived in the body of a somewhat privileged, able-bodied white woman. But whilst my body and my mind may be inseparable, there is something intangible within their connection. That is what I ultimately see as what it means to be human.